Jedi. I think I can get him before he gets there. He's almost in range.
That's no Jedi. It's Ahsoka Tano.
My name is Ahsoka Tano. I am no Jedi.
I'm no Jedi.
You're right about one thing, Captain. We are no Jedi.
All right. Welcome to Analyzing Ahsoka, a Who Watches podcast about the Disney Plus series Ahsoka on Disney Plus. I'm Travis Fishburne.
Hi, I'm Alex Brunel.
And joining us, our special guest this week is Mark the Moose Haas. Thank you for joining us.
I also am not a Jedi.
No.
Thank you so much for
None
having
of
me
us.
on, guys. Glad to be on here to talk some Ahsoka. Happy we're getting an Ahsoka series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very crazy and surreal thing that it exists at all. Yeah.
I don't think I could have anticipated how surreal this show's existence would actually be until I watched it last night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So many different aspects of it were just like, oh, this is really weird. I'm seeing this right now.
I know.
In both good and bad ways, which we'll get into because. Yeah. All right. So I think to begin, Mark, what are your what's your background with the Ahsoka character and with probably Rebels in general?
So, I obviously came to know Ahsoka from the 2008 Clone Wars movie with Dave Filoni, and my niece Kendall is a huge Star Wars fan. Her progression into nerddom started with the MCU. She became obsessed with Marvel and all things Marvel, and then she learned about Star Wars and she started watching all the Star Wars. We actually went to this. It was a Marvel Star Wars trivia night, and I took her with me, and then we won. And the prize that we won at this trivia competition was this table filled with Marvel and Star Wars stuff. And so all of a sudden she was like, I got to start watching Star Wars, because she was helping me on the Marvel stuff, but she wasn't doing very great with the Star Wars stuff. And so then she gets all these toys and she gets all the Star Wars stuff and she's jazzed. So she jumps right into all of the Star Wars. And so she starts latching onto the Clone Wars series. And she's really telling me, you got to watch Clone Wars series. You got to watch Clone Wars series. And at this point, I'm not. I'm really kind of just focused on loving the Star Wars cinematic movies, and I haven't really jumped into any of the series. And this was maybe about 3 years ago. This was right before The Mandalorian had come out on Disney Plus, and then The Mandalorian comes out. And at this point, I'm starting to love as much throwbacks to the Clone Wars series. So I went back and I binged the Clone Wars, all of it, and that was my introduction to Ahsoka Tano. And who immediately just comes off as this badass character. I mean, look, any character who can wield anything other than a standard lightsaber is amazing, right? And Ahsoka comes out with these two, and then she quits being a Jedi, but then she's continually featured in Clone Wars, and she comes back and she has these white sabers. And again, as Star Wars theatrical lore goes, you don't really get anything aside from red, blue, green, and Mace Windu with his purple. So Ahsoka Tano is just this powerful, fierce, feminine character with these awesome lightsabers, and her story just continues to get better and better and better. And I've only really, in the last year, come around to Rebels and started to binge Rebels. It's under the urge of my niece Kendall, who is like, okay, well, if you like Ahsoka and you like the storylines that happened in the Clone Wars, you have to get into Rebels. So recently, within the last probably 30 days, I finished watching the Rebel series. So coming into this show, it was super fresh, and the show's very Rebels friendly, I guess we can call it. So much so where I think the last, and I'm sure we'll get to that part, but the last scene of this second episode was pretty much like a shot-for-shot remake of the ending of Rebels.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that, and of course it's Filoni and Filoni's directing Rebels, so you're going to get a lot of the deep cuts that Filoni's going to bring to it. I mean, that dude just loves this universe. And, if Kathleen Kennedy at any point in time decided to retire, I think you give the job to either Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni to run Star Wars, and Filoni's probably the guy to do it. But Ahsoka was first introduced in the Clone Wars to me, and at first, especially in the 2008 movie, she's just kind of okay. She's the cute counterpart to Anakin's, Jedi. She's not really wanted by Anakin, but then the way that her relationship continues to develop, and then obviously she re-encounters Vader in the Rebel series. So Ahsoka's just always been that badass female character, and when she showed up on The Mandalorian season 2, and there was the mention of Ahsoka Tano, and I think everyone was fan casting Rosario Dawson before she even showed up in The Mandalorian as Ahsoka Tano. She looks so much the part, and she's got the physical presence to be able to just play this incredibly fierce character. And so when Rosario Dawson actually first came on screen, I was immediately sold on anything further that they were going to do with her. And I don't know if that was just a test run in The Mandalorian to see if how fans were going to respond to that character. But immediately, as soon as I saw her and she had the 2 lightsabers, it was like, just take my money, Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
You've got my subscription until I get 3 seasons of Ahsoka.
Yeah, no, just all of those things. And Alex, you have recently went on the binge with this character as well, and with the series Rebels that leads into this.
Yeah, so Angela, my fiance, and I have been working on like a total chronological Star Wars rewatch for like a year and a half because we keep getting sidetracked by other things, and there's just so many hours of stuff before you get to the original trilogy. And we had finally caught up to watching Rebels a few months ago, and we kept like dragging our feet until it came to when we were like 2 weeks out from Ahsoka, and we had 2 seasons left of Rebels to watch. So we power binged it as much as we could. I was working. Luckily, there was a show I got some work on recently, and so my time shrank even. So last weekend we watched, I think, 18 or 20 episodes in 2 days. And that was very intense, but really great, because when I watched Rebels initially, I dropped out somewhere toward the beginning of the 3rd season, and I was watching it by myself, which is like never a good scenario for me because I'm on my phone the whole time if I'm watching something by myself. If someone's sitting next to me, I have someone to answer to with my behavior, but if I'm by myself, I will shortchange my experience left, right, and center. It's really ridiculous. So as I was watching this stuff, I realized like I don't even remember like 2/3 of the stuff that I've already seen because I never actually really properly watched it. And yeah, the first 2 seasons do their thing, and there's a lot of really great stuff in there. But then, yeah, seasons 3 and 4 becomes just like deep Star Wars lore marathon for like 2 whole seasons of television with like very little diversion, which was really, really great. And then we got to come in just 2 days later into watching Ahsoka. And that was Angela's first time watching any of Rebels, like in this power binge. And she, so this is all totally fresh for her. And some of the things that, like, because I had skipped around and watched like the key story episodes of Rebels, like the World Within Worlds, is that what it's called?
World Between Worlds.
The World Between Worlds. And revisiting that, I am absolutely baffled by the economical storytelling of opening a door to all space and time and closing that same door in the A plot. There is a B plot of a 22-minute cartoon, which is, it's just like one of the largest overall concepts in Star Wars, and it's like told so economically in this little tiny window. It's just so great. And then I assumed, I mean, like, I saw the trailer. I knew that, like, there were Rebels characters in the show. I figured Sabine was going to be figuring heavily. I did not really anticipate that this is straight up Rebels 2. Like, this is just more Rebels, except it's live action and cost $150 million.
Yeah.
I'm very here for it. And I will not complain about that fact. It does make me a little concerned about anybody who hasn't seen Rebels. I don't really know who this show is. It's got to be just for the hardcore Star Wars nerds. I don't really see how this show picks up a new audience.
No, it's really bizarre. I think the way that they've gone about that, because yeah, it's not like Mando where it's bringing in, oh, if you don't even have to know Star Wars period, you can just like get in on the ground floor.
Right.
But yeah, with this in particular, you remember how with the Obi-Wan series, it opened up with this montage of like all of the best Anakin and Obi-Wan, relationship things throughout the prequels to like build
Right.
you up. And
That was like the recap before
Yeah.
episode 1, right? Yeah.
but everyone had seen those movies.
Right.
Like not everyone
We know
has seen
these.
Rebels. I feel like they should have had something like that in front of this.
Just like, or even like Disney Plus could have run like a 6-minute, here's what you need to know kind of like promo.
They did
know,
that
like-
with the Marvel characters. Like before,
And that makes all the sense in the world.
Each of their series comes out. They're like, here's this character up to this point.
Right.
Well,
And-
in my wife is a perfect example of exactly what you're talking about, Travis. She has not watched Rebels. She knows Ahsoka Tano only from watching The Mandalorian with me. So she's not seen the Clone Wars. So that's her only introduction is Rosario Dawson with 2 white lightsabers. And at the end of this, she's like, well, I'd like to really like the gal with all the like color on her. And she's like, but I'm totally confused. I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, I understand that fully.
It really doesn't set anything up. It's like watching Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me without watching any of the series beforehand. You're just like watching stuff happening and it's compelling for some reason, but you have no idea who any of these people are or why any of this is happening. Yeah, so really bold gambit on Disney's part to just let Filoni do this. And it's also like it was also very apparent to me like it's so clearly illustrated in these first 2 episodes of Ahsoka what Jon Favreau brings to this Star Wars TV universe and what Filoni brings and how much of a backseat Favreau is taking on this particular show. At least for these, I don't know, if he comes in stronger later as a kind of a, producerial or story influence or whatever. But these first 2 episodes, like, I feel like he just told Favreau to leave while he wrote these. And he's like, we're doing these, John. Don't ask. Don't bother reading. We're just producing these. What about you, Trav? How'd you find the whole thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been with the character, since the 08 movie. I was not a fan at first. It took the entirety of the Clone Wars series for the character to grow on you until the point where she's exiting. And that's the point where you're like, oh, I don't really want her to go now. So when she was reintroduced in Rebels, that was very exciting to see a more mature version of the character. And now we've got the most, wizened and mature version yet. And I think it's translating to live action very well. I don't know if all of the characters, aside from Ahsoka, are doing the same thing. I mean, I will say Sabine.
I think Sabine's really good.
Yeah, I think I prefer Sabine in live action to the animated version.
Yep, I agree.
I get that.
I cannot.
I'm having a little bit of a hard time coming around to Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera.
That's my big hang up is I'm like, this Hera doesn't ring true to me yet. But
Yeah.
I'll give it some more time.
There to all the actors' credit, I noticed because when you have animation, every character is doing more body expression in a more exaggerated way than any human being would do so. Someone could get rich if they had a nickel for every time like Ezra confusedly touched his head, like did one of these kind of things. And Hera with the hand on the hip. Sabine has a lot of really specific body language too. All of these live action actors nailed all of those mannerisms. All of those same things appear, which is like a really wild thing just because you're like, oh, you're doing that as a human and it looks a little like I notice it just because it's cartoon poses that all the people are doing, like live action Ezra and the little hologram in particular. But like all the actors are really well studied. And I love a Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Like I think she's absolutely fantastic. I've loved her for years. I hope that it starts feeling a little more comfortable as the episodes go on.
Yeah, no, me as well. And yeah, from the moment they announced her playing the character, I'm like, oh, that's not who I envisioned. But I'll wait until I see it, and it's still gonna give that one some time.
A lot more maternal, and I know at the end of Rebels they show Syndulla riding off when she has a child.
Right.
She seems a lot more like maternal than like rebel or an alliance general. I don't know. I just kind of got like, I understand that she has children and she has kind of a mom vibe.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I know you two play nice again. You're doing it again, you two. You're fighting.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I agree.
And it's
maybe
also
able to get better. Maybe she'll get a little more fiercer, a little more aggressive. But yeah, that didn't quite work for me. But I agree with you guys with Sabine. I thought I liked her so much more actually in this iteration than I did in the Rebels series.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
And that
think
might change. We're 2 episodes in. We
Yeah.
still got a
episodes,
ways
yeah.
to go.
so far they're giving the character like a little more depth, and really in that first episode, a lot more room to breathe. And that's something that, the animated series was always showing Sabine as just like this person who was unflappable and had all this background and could do all these different things. And they're not saying she's not like that in this show, but they are just showing her to be a little more human, which is nice.
yeah, I agree.
I will say I was not particularly a fan of the pacing, especially of the first episode. I was really into, we can just like get into it. The initial sequence where we're on the Mon Calamari ship, looks like it's, on the bridge, looks like we're seeing Crix Maydeen. That's not him, but it feels like we're right outside of Return of the Jedi. And the ship comes in, and we got Ray Stevenson coming out, and the whole sequence I felt was very reminiscent of the Phantom Menace of all things. When
It's a quiet start.
when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan come aboard the ship, they're both like, two mysterious figures cloaked the same way. And it even ends with Obi-Wan said, "You were right about one thing, Master. The negotiations were short." And he says, "You're right about one thing. We're no Jedi." Which I'm like, it's still a cute little mirror.
Even got Rogue One vibes with Ray Stevenson's character where he's walking down the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to definitely draw quite a bit from the Phantom Menace and, from Star Wars lore into this opening sequence. Also, the captain of the ship, what's his name? Was it Mark Ralston was the actor?
Yeah.
Sorry, he was terrible.
He was not good.
Ah.
He was not a
He's
very
just-
compelling performer in that scene.
He was not. Like, there was a scene my wife and I were kind of like rewound it. We were kind of making fun of it where he's like, "I'm gonna go see what this is about," and he like goes down there. It's like, that's so like, I'm sorry, that just doesn't sound like the captain of a prison ship is gonna be like, "I'm gonna go see what this is about."
Yeah, I'm gonna check this out personally.
Yeah, no, it just didn't like it. That captain did not work. I was glad that Ray Stevenson quickly dispatched him.
That's funny.
So weird, because
and-
I'm looking at the guy's filmography, and he's, he's got
He's
a
a
lot of
reliable
credits.
character
He's
actor.
doing a lot of stuff. He's doing a lot of voice actor stuff, and just showing up in series left and right. But yeah,
Well, I think there's something to be said too for Filoni's experience as a director, which is primarily through animation and a handful of episodes of Mandalorian, and that's his live action experience. And it's a lot. When you're directing animation, you are directing the animation. There's a voice director in the booth when the voices are being recorded, directing that work. Maybe Filoni is present, but like there's another person that's directing the voice acting. And here, Filoni's got to be directly working with actors to draw performances out of them. And I don't know if that's something that he's adept at yet.
Very true.
Yeah.
You skipped the fact that it starts with a crawl.
It
That
does.
was
It starts
fun.
with a crawl, and a different kind of a crawl
A
where
new crawl.
it felt, because they're like, I guess they felt they wanted to keep the crawl, but they wanted to change things up. So visually, it felt like it was coming like right out of the 70s, like some kind of a 70s sci-fi dystopian future thing.
Yeah.
With the red text, and it's not going back, and you don't have that perspective thing. It is just like this crawling thing, and it's not, like centered and stretched. It's all like to the left,
Yeah.
but it's still structurally the same crawl as the films, the 3 paragraphs, and
Right.
every so often there's a keyword that's all in capital letters. And, Yeah.
I liked it. I
Yeah.
liked seeing a crawl. I liked seeing a variation of a crawl. I'm for, expository text in science fiction. I'm in favor of such a device.
Yeah, I think that's...
found it interesting. It was red. I mean, Filoni in the past, when he's used crawls that were in red or used the Star Wars logo that was in red, it's always kind of symbolized that Maul, like there would be some sort of like a Darth Maul reference or
Right.
like a heavily implied dark side. So as soon as I saw that, my first thought was, okay, there's going to be a lot of Sith or a lot of dark side users that are going to be featured in this. And I mean, in the opening sequence, we get, Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. So I don't know if that was just the precursor to us being, immediately introduced that there are going to be dark side users in this. I think we all knew that seeing the previews for this, but I'm like, that was the first thing that struck my interest when I saw the red crawl coming in. Yeah, I'm all for the crawls. But yeah, I immediately thought that. And as soon as, the first sequence is these two, I guess you call them Sith, or just simply,
I don't know, man. These guys got
Jedis?
orange lightsabers, and the girls got a Padawan braid, and
He was a former Jedi. Yeah, you learned
Yeah.
he survived Order 66. And
yeah. So this is some rogue agent. Is it, Travis? Is this a character that's been introduced in any of the EU at all? This is a
No,
brand new
this
character.
is... He's a brand new character.
Okay.
So yeah, we don't have a lot of background on him, and by that I mean none, other than like what is established in these episodes is that
David Tennant tells us.
Yeah, he was hired, to rescue Morgan Elsbeth and help see to her find Thrawn. I don't know.
I will say I do enjoy both of these new characters, though.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, a lot. I think they were very high points, at least for me, for both episodes. Baylan, I think is going to become an interesting character. I hope he's just not, the hired muscle to be the hired muscle. He immediately, especially as, into the end of the second episode, when he's kind of having these premonitions about Ahsoka, but he's hesitant to, potentially kill her because there's so few Jedi left. And she's just like, oh, is that sympathetic? And he's like, no, that's just the truth. So yeah, I find him very interesting. He has this very like Qui-Gon Jinn presence. And his apprentice has very much like an Obi-Wan or an Anakin apprentice. Yeah. He's very methodical and he doesn't rush into battles. And then she leaps right in and she's going and she's the more aggressive of the two of them, obviously. But I don't know. I find both of them interesting. I agree. I don't know if their lightsabers are red or if their lightsabers are orange. They really look orange to me. So
they look orange to me too.
Yeah, I think they are supposed to be kind of a shade of orange, and Filoni has commented as much that they aren't Sith red for a reason.
So maybe these Jedi that went rogue found work being hired muscle.
Yeah,
and they were like, okay, well, I'm not exactly altruistic at this juncture of my life, so maybe I can't be using the standard Jedi blue or green, so I went with orange. I'm not quite dark side, I'm not quite light side, I'm kind of undecided.
I like it. And then we move on and we see Ahsoka raiding a temple to find what we don't know yet, but it turns out to be a kind of map, a map to find Luke Skywalker. No, it's to find Thrawn. We're always finding these MacGuffin maps now.
This one is at least a really beautiful
Yes.
MacGuffin map.
Mhm. There is that.
I loved the sequences of exploring the map. Yeah.
And the whole sequence of her like getting to it, it was like, is this like an Uncharted video game right now? Is this Fallen Order? Like, because that's what it felt like, was like we're just watching.
Painfully slow.
Yeah.
Like, okay, show her figuring out the first and then quick clip it to her figuring out the other 2 or 3 that she needs to figure out. But yeah, it was painfully slow for me. At first I was like, oh, this is like Raiders. And it is very much like Raiders of the Lost Ark, especially even when they show the segment where there's a beam of light illuminating to where they need to go. I kept just thinking like Staff of Ra. This is Raiders of the Lost Ark. They're getting the inspiration from.
Yeah.
But then it went on for 7.5 minutes while we watched Ahsoka painfully struggle through each one of these puzzles before we finally started to move on to the next segment.
Yeah. Travis, that was a good point. That scene does feel like a Fallen Order scene. Like a scene from that video game. I haven't played Survivor yet, but it very much feels like it could have been a scene where Cal is exploring a cave in Fallen Order.
Yeah.
I really do need to play that game.
Oh man, the first one's so good. I haven't played the second one yet, but Fallen Order's so good. I liked this fight scene though. I like that we did get a good, like a real solid lightsaber battle in the first act of this episode. I think we all needed that. I love how the droids in this show look. Maybe they look this good in Mandalorian, but the way the droids look is really like a photorealistic realization of how assassin droids moved and their physicality in those cartoons, which always seemed so unlikely because there's these huge metal objects. But when you have the huge metal object that looks photorealistic still doing these things, it feels so threatening. It feels like such a threat. And those robots were way cool. I really like these HK droids.
Yeah, I agree. This is the point in the episode where I was like, oh, yeah, I'm full in on this. I love the way that this show looks. I love that we're seeing like real sets. I know like that was not all a real set, but enough of it was, and enough of it looked photorealistic that I'm like, this is looking better than say the Obi-Wan Kenobi show or anything like that. And this, I'll just like throughout the rest of the next 2 episodes, it felt that way as well, because there's the scene on Lothal where Clancy Brown is out on the
Lothal so much.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, this is great because I can tell they actually shot this outside. And Alex, you can like speak to this. There's something about natural sunlight that you cannot capture in a studio.
Yeah, I mean, the sun is the best light. That, and any director of photography will tell you that like there's nothing better to light a scene with than the sun.
Yeah.
And we've seen so much stuff shot in the volume now that we kind of have a sense of how that feels. Like, I think it would be pretty easy, actually, if you really wanted to sit down and like pause and be like, okay, this is a volume scene. Okay, this is a set. Okay, this is an exterior. I think it would actually be pretty easy to break it down because we're kind of so familiar with how that looks now in a subconscious way, but like it's a visceral difference in quality between, oh, hi, Fran, between like all of season 2 of Mandalorian versus the episode where Boba Fett comes in. That's shot entirely exterior and all this stuff. I was not at all prepared for Clancy Brown to be the one voice actor who got to play his part in live action. That was very cool and unexpected. And who's the kid who's a senator now? Jai Kell.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Ezra's little annoying friend Jai Kell is now
a
person of political import on Lothal. Good for him. But I do really love throwing that little stuff in. Very like Sabine to not show up. Yeah.
And
Anytime you can have Clancy Brown show up and just class up the joint,
yeah, I
it's
love
going to be a good show.
Clancy Brown continuing to show up. And well, this is a pre-established character, but he continues to show up in Star Wars throughout like all of these series.
Was he? Did we have him in Mando?
He was in Mando. He was what's the character's name?
Yeah, he was on the episode with Bill Burr where they break out.
Oh, that's
He was in
right.
the prison, break episode.
I'm surprised that didn't give Filoni some kind of like, canon hang up.
Yeah.
Like, can I put a guy who looks exactly like this other guy in the universe?
Yeah, I played the Deveronian. I forget his name. And then, he was also the voice of Savage Opress.
Right.
And yeah, so glad to see him still having a good relationship with Filoni, getting work.
Yeah.
And I was very excited when Ahsoka called Huyang. And I'm like, oh, Huyang's in this show.
Yeah.
Like, I knew he was going to be in Skeleton Crew. I didn't know he was going to be in this. And Huyang, he's a Clone Wars character.
There's a couple of moments where characters come on here and it just feels like an old, like, reunition of like friends. Like oh shit, Hu Yang's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I love this. And this is another one of those, like, I love seeing this robot in live action. I love seeing this droid
Looks
in
great.
live action.
Looks great when it's like, you can tell it's practical. It even looks
Yeah.
great when it's CG too.
Yeah. No, it's a beautifully rendered thing. I'm really happy this character's in the show. And if we're talking about droids too, like, I mean, I know it's skipping ahead a little bit, but Chopper also being in this show, the fucking chaos demon that Chopper is. Now just
The Chopper flex was like the greatest part of both of these episodes. Let's be honest. When Chopper lands the tracking beacon, and then just goes ooh and flexes.
Yeah.
That's Chopper.
like, yeah, and it's like, oh yes, this is very definitely Rebels too. Like, this is a show for kids, except those kids grew up and now it's for the 30-somethings, the 20-somethings.
I love Chopper.
Oh, man.
He's like the only astromech that has arms that can do those kind of anthropomorphized motions.
Right, again, because he was a cartoon, and like that makes sense in a cartoon format. Then you bring him into live action, it's just this heightened absurdity thing that I'm just like so here for when it comes to Star Wars. At least in this context. When it's set, I had a lot of thoughts on the one episode of Mandalorian in season 5 where it was Jack Black and Lizzo and all these things. Like, I love all those things being in Star Wars. It didn't really feel like it was maybe supposed to be an episode of Mandalorian to me.
Mm-hmm.
But bringing out Ahsoka and doing all this stuff straight out of the gate is just like, okay, I'm with the tone. I understand this. This is what this show is. I'm with it. Let's go.
The back and forth between Hera and Chopper, though, was also quite charming.
Yeah.
Like the two of them arguing, like, no, I didn't go through your stuff. Like, yeah, I just, you can tell this droid's been with this group of people for a very long time. He's one of the family. Like, they're arguing like they're old friends. So
yeah,
that again, it was good to see the Chop back.
Yeah. And the Chopper and Hera relationship is the oldest relationship of these characters because she rescued him during the Clone Wars. He was a Y-wing like droid that like crashed on why am I brain farting?
I just saw the episode where they went back to that planet. Somewhere.
Yeah.
One of the planets that we've been to more than once in Star Wars, although I
Yeah.
can't remember the name of it.
Thankfully, we did not go to Tatooine in either of these two episodes.
Yeah, that was nice.
That was.
I was
nice.
also relieved to see that we, like, in the entirety of Rebels, they went to Tatooine once, I think. That was nice, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Ryloth.
Yeah.
A full 30 seconds later, I got it.
Nailed it.
Oh, it was Ryloth. Okay.
Yeah.
That shouldn't have been an easy one to forget. Ryloth.
No, it's a pretty important one. Yeah, but yeah, we get that. We get to go back to Lothal, and like you said, Lothal looks great. Looks just like it did animated, to the point where the establishing shot, I'm like, was this just pulled out of Rebels? I guess it wasn't.
It was like Rebels files that were like, okay, convert this cartoony style to 3D realistic. Okay, we're good. Go. Just texture it better.
And I both love and I question. They've got this 2-lane road that like is just
Oh my
straight
god, I
that
talk
goes
about the stupid Lafayette Highway all the time.
in and out of the city that is just straight, and there's never any traffic on it because where else is there to go on Lethal?
Okay, so I think when I finally got like in Rebels, because I don't generally like talk back to the TV when I'm watching stuff. I'm trying to concentrate on the thing, but like I had finally had enough of like it was toward the end. Everybody was escaping, and Kanan turns back to go get Hera and rescue Hera, and it's right before Kanan meets his end, and I'm like, why are you using the one lit road to make your escape? Go just off to the side of the road where there's darkness and you can be lost easily. And Angela's like, well, maybe there's like animals that roam out there and they might hit an animal. And then not even 30 seconds later, he hits the Loth Wolf. So like, like on the road. It's like, okay, so this highway is just stupid. But
it made sense while it was being made, but I mean, for tactical purposes afterwards, no, not as much. I will say, like, I enjoyed that whole segment with Sabine and showing her on the bike. I thought that was really cool. I did think it went on a little long.
It was a little long.
The first episode definitely had some pacing issues.
It did.
It seemed less in the second episode. The second episode seemed to be moving at a decent pace, but the first one, it was just these long shots, like Ahsoka in the temple, Sabine on that road. Like, it just took forever to kind of get to the point. We get it. Sabine's a badass. She's on a motorcycle. She's not going to stop for the, the guards. Like, again, it worked for me, but it was just kind of like, okay, shave this down to a tight 30-second segment. And we're good.
Yeah.
I'm also looking, and so that second episode was directed by Steph Green, who is a seasoned television director with a lot of work under her belt going back the last 10 years. And a lot of like big TV too, like I see Scandal, I see The Americans, I see some Marvel stuff on here. There's Watchmen. So like this person has a lot more experience shooting, pacing, directing live action than Filoni does. And I'm not trying to like just make this a knock on Filoni show. He's doing like freaking fantastic work here story wise. I am just eating this stuff up, but I think he has room to grow as a director.
I think he's just so accustomed to being like, all right, you got 22 minutes to tell a story, and finally he was like, oh, guess what, guys, I got like a full hour here. But like at the same time, this kind of felt like it could have been condensed into a 22-minute episode. Like you said, the efficiency of telling the world between worlds stuff. Because when Sabine...
The next episode coming up is 32 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? So
is that right?
Yes. So maybe Disney, maybe Kathleen Kennedy stepped in and was like, all right, Dave, we're going you back to a shorter time frame. Tighten it up, dude.
Oh man, and here I was hoping for like a 6-minute scene of a guy just pushing a broom across the floor of a bar, like in Twin Peaks.
Oh, can we get Broom Boy back? Force sensitive Broom Boy being the guy pushing the broom.
Yeah, let's put that scene in Ahsoka in one of Filoni's episodes. Maybe Filoni made the same choice.
Just Rey's future army is just going to be a bunch of former janitors that are all force sensitive.
Travis, you haven't seen the revival Twin Peaks, right? The 2017
No,
season?
I haven't, and
okay,
I feel like
spoiler for the show, but there is a scene in an episode that is it's between 5 and 7 minutes long, and it's just a guy sweeping the floor at the bar. That's the whole thing, and then at the very end of the scene, the phone in the behind the bar rings. There's been a bar hand back there the whole time, and he answers the phone, and there's like a 15-second phone conversation, and then that's the end of the scene, and then the episode continues. It's not even the end of the episode. Like, the episode just stops to do this thing, and it's like, I don't even know. It's a wonderful, very David Lynch moment.
I will say, I like the inclusion of Morgan Elsbeth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I I find the Night Sisters of Dathomir, like, this is, I kind of feel like this series is going to go different than most Star Wars lore. Most Star Wars lore, like, the magic that you get is really the Jedi using the Force, right?
Right.
This one, I think we're going to get a little bit of like arcane, like magic mixed into it.
Yeah.
And so, like, seeing her be able to kind of like illuminate the green flame and be able to, use whatever the device, the Wayfinder, and that whole segment with the Wayfinder was incredibly cool.
Yeah,
but,
it was.
Like that was such a very, very cool moment. Just the look on like on Balin and Shin's face as this is happening is like, we've never seen something like this before.
Yeah.
And he's an old retired Jedi, so he's seen some shit. So for something like that to pop up, like, again, I like already within the 2 episodes the story that they're going. I like that she has this connection to Thrawn. She can hear him
that's
calling
interesting.
to him. So it's also like, okay, she's talking about being part of like an ancient race from another galaxy. And so part of me is thinking, like, is Thrawn now with that ancient race and that other part of the galaxy? Are there additional Night Sisters working with Thrawn on that? And that's how she's able to have this connection with him. Because nothing in the Rebel series kind of indicates that Thrawn has magical abilities,
Right.
or is even Force sensitive, and she's just tapping into like a dark side of the Force. So I'm curious to see how that continues to progress. I hope it's not just a one-off that she's just an ancient remnant of the Night Sisters,
Yeah.
but that there's just kind of maybe more of them out there. Maybe that's who Thrawn's reaching, or who Thrawn, out of necessity on this other side of the universe, has had to kind of turn his alliances to. But no, I like her inclusion, and I like so far this magical element to Star Wars that isn't Force related.
Same. And it's a super bold move, because like I love the Night Sisters, all the Dathomir stuff. I loved all of that stuff in the cartoons, and it is one of those things where it's so kind of outside of what people who have only seen the films or even Mandalorian would think of as a thing in Star Wars. That again, I feel like this is also another super bold move to make that thing kind of front and center of this show. Travis, we've met Morgan before, right? She was who Ahsoka fought in her Mandalorian debut.
Yeah, she's the one who was she'd hired Michael Biehn in that town, and
Right.
yeah, who Ahsoka went after and said, take me to, help me find Grand Admiral Thrawn, and that's when all this was connected. So,
but in that episode, we don't know anything more about her, right?
No.
Just that she can fight and that she's looking for Thrawn, and then now we learn that she's a Night Sister.
yeah, and she had like this town under control. So we had no idea that she had any Night Sister connections. That was crazy.
Yeah,
then we get
she
to see her wearing the red robes.
In that episode too, it was just of the Mandalorian. It was just really kind of, she almost seemed just like a former Imperial warlord or guns runner, who has kind of a privatized army and had taken over this town and was basically running it the way that she wanted to.
Yeah.
But yeah, finding out that she's got these connections to the Night Sisters, I agree. It's a bold move, Cotton, but it is. I think it's going to be interesting. I actually wonder, like, if the progression of making this almost like a Rebels 2 type series will maybe not force, but encourage people who are really more theatrical or casual viewers to go back and watch and research a little bit more into this. I mean, they're introducing stuff that, again, from like theatrical lore, which is probably 80% of Star Wars viewers just go see the movies or have seen the movies and don't go into these continuation series. So I'm curious if if a lot of people are going to go back and start watching Rebels after this.
I would hope. I mean, there's a lot there to love. It does. I mean, like, there's the same thing like with Clone Wars. Like, it's kind of a slog to get through the first couple seasons of Clone Wars, and it's not as much of a slog in the first couple seasons of Rebels. But like, when you got to go through the like, oh great, here's another young Jedi who's very promising, who's being tempted by the dark side, and he's kind of just a jerk for most of the time now. Great, where have we seen this before? Like, but once we get past all of that stuff, then it gets like just really grippingly good. And I do hope that more people go back and watch it. Yeah, because there's really wonderful storytelling in there. What else do we got? I mean,
Then we get like another sequence, another unnecessarily long sequence of Sabine figuring out the map. Like this is before, but
it was a bit long.
Yeah.
And also, like, I mean, I get it. I get a justification could be made for Sabine running away with the goods and then getting them stolen, but it's so dumb. Like, it was such a dumb move.
Yeah. It's like, okay, we understood when she was going away from the ceremony that she's,
right,
a rebel.
Right, right, yes.
Okay, she's defiant. Okay, here she is being defiant again. We understand that's a characteristic of hers.
Yeah, and just like the I don't know. I think she's smarter than that. I feel like she's smarter than to run away with the hugely important object to a place where she'd be vulnerable to attack. Because she knows that other people are after this. Like, because that information is presented to her as well, right? That Morgan Elspeth was broken out and that they're after this same thing. Like, she was aware of this, right? So
immediately, I mean, Clancy Brown, like, even kind of tells her, like, hey, listen to what she has to say.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
She immediately tells her, like, this is potentially a map to where Grand Admiral Thrawn is.
Yeah, so
there's got to be people, like, she can't just be like, oh, nobody else is looking for this.
So that irked me a little bit. That seemed just like for the sake of plot, for the sake of being able to get it into the bad guy's hands after letting Ahsoka get it in the first place, kind of a thing. But yeah, we'll move on. It's fine.
I did like the fight sequence that she had with Shin.
Yeah.
Okay. Nowadays, everyone can survive getting stabbed by a lightsaber.
Being run through by a lightsaber is the least deadly way to be hit with a lightsaber, except if you're Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yes. I'm like, why didn't anybody tell Qui-Gon this?
Yeah, why didn't anybody tell Qui-Gon they could just take him to the hospital? He just chose to die.
Yeah. I would have very much rather her wound her another way with the lightsaber, Ahsoka show up and scare her off. Like, the stabbing incident, just, again, how many people are going to get stabbed with a lightsaber and survive that?
Yeah, like if we hadn't just seen it in Obi-Wan and
twice in
rolled our
Obi-Wan
eyes at it in that context, it wouldn't feel so weird. But like, we just saw it and it was dumb there too.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I hear people bring up about Obi-Wan all the time, the getting stabbed and surviving, and to a point where I'm like I'm tired of hearing about that point of Obi-Wan. Can we explore other things? And then as soon as it happened to Sabine in this show, I'm like, oh, they did it again. Why?
Watch in episode 3, there's going to be a guy who's standing there and then he does a 360 spin just to shoot in the direction that he was initially pointing. We're going to get that reprise.
That'd be cool.
Every time I see that, I always think of the Office scene where Dwight's running into a meeting and he's like, spin move! And he just spins past the receptionist. Every single time I see that, I reference the spin move from the Office. But I did enjoy the fact that she had her Mandalorian armor and instead she grabbed a lightsaber. So we got a bit of a lightsaber. And then again, we got to see a little bit more of Shin's capabilities, but also like her aggression. She's obviously a skilled apprentice, and she obviously is very formidable. So I'm curious to see how that dynamic between Sabine and Shin develops.
Yeah.
Like, there's obviously going to be another face-off, right?
Right. There's going to be a reckoning for that.
Right. Is Sabine going to stab her and she survives to season 2? Just throwing it out there.
Could be.
And then, sorry, Travis, you have
something? Oh, no, you go ahead.
It's also super interesting to learn that Sabine was Ahsoka's apprentice for some time.
Yep. I was going the same direction, so yeah.
Because, Sabine fighting with a lightsaber, that makes sense to me. She was trained with a darksaber. She knows how to use the blade. Like, this makes total sense to me. a person not ever being portrayed as really force sensitive, having been a Jedi apprentice, is a wild concept.
Yeah,
and in this post Jedi world, I don't know what that exactly means.
I mean, it's something I feel like this series is really leaning into. Like, what you were saying about all, the magic and the Night Sisters thing. Like, that's one aspect. And I the stuff I put together for this show, everyone's saying they're no Jedi. And from, Ray Stevenson and the Shin character to Ahsoka herself is not a Jedi.
Right.
And she's taking on an apprentice. So these aren't two Jedi training. She's training Sabine, but to what end? It's a good question. So I'm interested to see like the exploration of all of this.
Yeah.
And even Hu Yang, tells her, he's like, yeah, you're not good with the Force. Like, you're the least good with the Force person I've ever seen.
You have the lowest aptitude of anyone I've ever worked with.
I was just going to bring up that point.
Yeah.
That scene between the two of them is great, by the way.
Wonderful scene.
Yes.
Really great.
But then he also just kind of encourages her. Like, he knows that there's so few Jedi left out there. It's like quitting for the sake of quitting is not a valid excuse. You're just kind of running through life. You're not really living your life. You're just kind of existing. Like, get back to your practices, get back to your studies. Whether you're good at it or not doesn't mean you shouldn't continue to study to improve. And so I am curious if and I wonder if they'll touch on this, if down the line, the reason why Ahsoka decided to take her on was because she was skilled in the arts of the lightsaber, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you can try to teach the Force, and that just never came naturally to her, because most Force-sensitive people seem to be able to possess some basic skills using it, right? As exampled by Broom Boy. He's going to be my continual example for all things Jedi. But she didn't necessarily display that aptitude with the Force, but she was obviously skilled with the lightsaber. So maybe that was the idea behind Ahsoka taking her on, was maybe I can teach her the Force because I don't really need to teach her how to use a lightsaber. Although maybe she should have worked on her lightsaber skills. She did get stabbed in the chest.
She did get stabbed right through the chest, yeah.
Yeah, is another thing that, General Grievous was trained by Count Dooku.
That's true.
He was not
Very
a Force
true.
user.
Good point.
That's a good point. I want to make one other little observation and rewind a little bit because I forgot to mention this. But when Sabine's running away when she's running down the highway and blasting her space punk rock in her ears, this is I think Rebels was the first canon Star Wars media to introduce music with guitar. Like, that would just sounded like classic rock. There's like a classic rock song that comes up twice in Rebels. Once is when Zeb is just like lounging in a rare relaxed moment, and he's like sunbathing and listening to this like kind of like American
and eating
rock song.
Waffles, I think.
And then that same track comes up again, like they're sneaking up on a Trandoshan who's, I think, running the mining guild barge or whatever, and he's like listening to the same song on his headphones. So that's just another interesting thing to me, because all of the music in Star Wars has all sounded very spacey, except for that song and this one in Ahsoka. And this is the first one that we've heard. This is the first like Star Wars rock song with alien lyrics, I think. Also, I think that's a Star Wars first.
I think so.
These are my observations.
Spoilers. It's not a spoiler. I've heard that in the Jedi Survivor game, it also incorporates some Star Wars rock as well.
Oh, interesting.
Not to be confused with Jedi rocks, which is entirely
different thing
different.
that everyone should forget about. But
have you guys watched where, like, for example, Nerd Chronic from the Video Drew channel, like, had redone that scene with Sabine, but put it to Sabotage by Beastie Boys?
Yes.
That sounds great.
It works quite well in that sequence.
Thanks for giving us that whole motif, JJ.
Well, then it's funny when I was first got into the Schmodown, one of the first facts I learned about Star Wars was Kevin Kiners was the composer of the Clone
Yeah.
Wars movie, and then obviously the series, Rebels. So, of course, Filoni's just dragging everything he can from these series and throwing them on the screen. So why wouldn't he bring along Kevin Kiner? And the music worked really, really well in the show.
Good. Yeah,
that was one of the like really high points for me. Was it still felt in the world of Star Wars, but somewhat different. It was great.
I'm sure.
I think Kevin. Go ahead, Trav.
Oh, I mean, I was just gonna say, I'm sure Kevin Kiner, just like Filoni, for the past 15 years, has been working with Star Wars animation for so long. He's like, yes, finally, you're giving me some live action to work with.
Right, you're giving me a real job.
My time to shine.
Yeah, and like I'm so pleased that that kind of that Disney allowed them to do that, just because like Kevin is generally like an animation composer, and there's like, you know, people think of professionals that work in certain fields as just working in those fields, and especially working in TV, especially working in the quantity that Kevin Kiner was faced with in those animated series. A lot of it is just going to be like totally serviceable music that's not like amazing, but when he had his moments in those animated series, when like the moment really needed to be elevated with some powerful music, that dude brought it. And I thought that like I was amazed and just wowed when I watched the credits after the first episode and was like, oh man, Kevin got to do this. This is great, because it feels so much of the same universe, just because they were able to carry over that musical language.
Mm-hmm. And the
Huge
thing
props
with
for
like you said, with the quantity of the Clone Wars and Rebels, what he did, especially in Clone Wars, he could not and did not rely, I don't know like where this came from, if it was his choice, if it was a Lucas thing, but he did not rely on any of Williams' themes at all.
No, they came up very infrequently.
Yeah. So yeah, just creating, you know, different characters' themes and motifs, whole cloth, and yeah, continuing to do so here.
The whole segment on Corellia worked for me. I think that was of both episodes. That was my favorite part, even with the corrupt, you know, businessman who's still, you know, working. There's still like ties to the Empire, and like they explored this a little bit in The Mandalorian, in that like, look, there's people from the Empire that have to work for the New Republic. Like, if you want to keep things serviceable, if you want to keep things operating, you basically have to keep them employed. But there's still going to be these people who are loyal to it. And so that whole segment, especially when they were in the office and, God, I can't remember the character's name, but he's just refusing to give Hera access to these files and show them, and then the protocol droid just kind of rats him out. And then everyone in the room starts pulling out blasters, and it's like, oh shit, they were all like Empire loyalists. It was great, that entire segment. And then the fight scene below, when she lands, and then the space chase with the Phantom, and that of course great. Chop, all of it worked so well. Like that right there immediately, like everything so far in like these Disney Plus series, there's a few moments where you go, damn, that's the Star Wars that I wanted.
Yeah.
And there'll be an episode, or it'll be a couple of scenes that just really, really work. And boy, that just satisfied like that Star Wars like thirst that I had. It was like, oh man, this is exactly what I wanted out of a show like this.
Yeah. I totally agree. I love that sequence. Just the Phantom just hot trailing the ship and just dodging every single shot was so Rebels. And so that I loved it. So great.
The fight with Merrick. Now, I find Merrick very interesting. I'm sure you guys have seen all the theories that Merrick could potentially be Ezra.
I haven't seen any theories. I haven't seen anything.
So there's a theory right now that Merrick could potentially be a corrupted Ezra. But there's a moment when he throws his saber caster at Ahsoka, and she dodges it at first, and he's calling it back, and she just slightly turns.
I love that.
Like, no look, She knows it's coming. Like, oh man, it was so slick, and it
Yeah.
was so like, okay, you've established Ahsoka, like she's just this dominating presence at this point. Like,
Totally.
that was such a slick move, but also like an fu to Merrick. Like, yeah, you got to bring it a little harder than that. But I again, that whole Corellia sequence just really, really works. And when I heard like, oh, we're going back to Corellia, I'm like, okay, we're going back to another planet we've seen before. But it was done well. I enjoyed that entire sequence. It was my favorite of both episodes. But yeah, Merrick is an interesting character. Like, he's a former Inquisitor. Obviously, there's something redeemable about Baylan Skull with Ray Stevenson's character. Again, like, we're all kind of agreement that they're not necessarily Sith, but then they have this Inquisitor who's obviously got ties to the Empire.
Yeah.
It's just a very interesting character.
My theory on Merrick, when he gets unmasked, he's going to be played by Sam Witwer. And it's going to be, yeah, because the name, Galen Merrick is who the Star Killer character was in the Force Unleashed games. So that's who I think it is.
Interesting.
Very interesting. Okay.
We'll find out.
Yeah, hopefully it's not Ezra, because I feel like that would be maybe cheapening the reunion of the rebels with Ezra if he's indeed alive.
Yeah, and I don't think that makes sense for Ezra's arc either. Like, just in how that character wound up in Rebels in terms of just like that kind of calm Jedi clarity that Ezra eventually gets to at the very end. Mm-hmm. I don't see Filoni doing what I don't see them totally changing the character in between the two stories like JJ did with Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really see that in the cards. It's also because like Filoni is way more of a crowd pleaser than most people who have been involved with making Star Wars, I think.
Or
could just be that Baylan is just picking up these remnants.
Yeah.
Like, he's obviously like the Alliance won, so there's the New Republic, the Empire's gone. What is an Inquisitor going to do? Hey, you can join my band of Force sensitive people who are just looking for work. So it could just be that Baylan's just picking up sad sobs that are unemployed and giving them something to do.
Yeah, it's actually not dissimilar from the Knights of Ren.
Yep.
There's a very silly comic books that have the Knights of Ren as guest stars, and they're mercs. They're Force sensitive mercenaries. That's kind of it.
I mean, eventually all of this ends into the First Order. Excuse me.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe Merrick is the first of the Knights of Ren. Maybe he goes on to establish that down the line. But I mean, you've got another 20 years to go. That
would be a really interesting. Well, because I keep up on the Star Wars comic books because they're all canon and they're easy to read. And I'm a few months behind now. But the story that featured the Knights of Ren actually took place in between Empire and Jedi. So that's as far back as we know that those characters exist within the Star Wars universe, and probably before that. But I don't think we've run into a situation yet where Disney has retconned any of the new canon. I don't think that's happened yet.
Not yet. So you're saying we're not going to get a huge reveal near the end of this series where we find out that Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren came from Sabine Wren at one point?
That would be wild. That would be really funny. I don't think so.
All right.
Just as like when everyone was speculating, like, oh, are they going to bring back? Are they like? I remember there was speculation online a couple of years ago about bringing back Emilia Clarke as
Kira.
As Kira in the live action series, but her whole character is wrapped up in the comic books. Like she comes back, she's a major player for a few months, and then she's wrapped up pretty nicely in a bow.
Yeah, plus
So,
she's
like-
got that Marvel Secret Invasion stuff going for her, right? Everyone
I gotta watch
loved
the
that.
last 2 episodes of that still. I don't know. It's just
Let's just say that she ends up becoming like the most powerful person in the Marvel universe. You're
Oh,
like,
does she
well, we'll
become
never
Super
see you
Skrull?
again.
Does she become Super Skrull? Or Power Skrull? Or one of the other silly named Skrulls from the comic books? I love the Marvel cosmic stuff. The
Yep.
comic. It's a
I
whole
love
other
Amelia
podcast.
Clark, but I don't think we're ever going to see her in the MCU again. I think her reign ended with Secret Empire.
Well, I mean, we'll see how much longer this Marvel thing lasts anyway. At this point.
What do you mean? It's better than ever.
I'm still here for it, man. I'm still watching all the stuff except for the last 3 or 4 of the Secret Invasion, which I haven't watched yet. I'm still enjoying all of it. And as it's getting more absurd, I'm still embracing it because it's just like, yeah, I'm sorry that for 10 years or whatever, Marvel duped you into thinking that this stuff wasn't completely ridiculous and didn't make any sense, but really it's totally ridiculous and doesn't make any sense. And if you've ever read a comic book in your life, you would not be mad at Quantumania. Like, if you've ever read like a single actual issue of Ant-Man, I don't think any of those people would be upset at how absurd Quantumania is. For
Oh
example.
no. I fully appreciate how crazy Quantumania was. It's just like visually.
It
Like
looks
it's
like
just
fun.
more to me like,
Yeah.
oh, I just want more real sets. That's
Yeah,
what I want.
no, I
Yeah.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
100%. MODOK, thumbs up. Visuals, meh.
MODOK was this is not that show. But
This is not that show,
the
sorry.
MODOK reveal was like so awesome, but at the same time the character looked so weird. I didn't realize who was at first.
No, it's totally same. Totally same. Ahsoka, though.
Yeah, Ahsoka.
What is there something that we haven't really touched upon yet?
No, I think
I feel like we've hit all the major points. I'm in, man. I am still also having trouble coming around, having just like really hard marathon Rebels and hard binging that, separating those voices from the characters.
Oh, sure.
That's the main difficulty for me right now, where it's like the Natasha Liu Bordizzo, who plays Sabine. Her voice is pretty much is in a similar tenor.
Mhm.
She's got the delivery down. That one isn't like a disconnect for me. Ahsoka, I'm getting there because we've gotten to spend more time with
Pre-established,
Rosario as
yeah.
Ahsoka. But like Mary Elizabeth Winstead as Hera, I'm just like the way her voice is not the way Hera's voice was on the show. And
Yeah,
that's just
it's
I gotta
hard.
get
I
over
don't know. Like it's it's probably a mixture of all things, whether it be the voice or like the eyes. Like every
Yeah.
time, and half of her scenes are holographic in these 2 episodes, and they like it's just like her staring down the camera with like these really wide eyes. I'm like, this doesn't look like Hera, but okay.
Yeah, and I do like how they like really, because everybody's eyes on Rebels were exaggerated.
Mhm,
Like
yeah.
everybody had sparkly everyone had glitter in their irises on that show, and I do kind of love that they try to recreate that with the physical Hera makeup. That her blue eyes are just like screaming at you the whole time. I do kind of like it just because it's such a direct parallel, and it's just like so like, oh my god, what? But just having a reason for it and maintaining that, I enjoy.
For sure. All right. And it wouldn't be an episode of this show without me bringing up Star Trek. So let's go ahead and do that right now because speaking of animated characters coming to life, as great as this was, I think the best animated characters coming to life was in Strange New Worlds a few weeks ago, in which we got characters from Lower Decks coming in.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, they made live.
Oh, wow.
There was a crossover in which Jack Quaid and Tawny Newsome like came in, and they played the animated versions of themselves. And
That's wild.
it's like, it was so great. And the way that they play them is they play them like they're animated characters. So it's it's wild.
Shit, I should. What season is Strange New Worlds on?
They just finished season 2, only 10 episodes each.
All right, that's somewhat manageable.
And you'll wish for more at the end too.
Jack Quaid's quickly making a name for himself. I think he's gonna be a something.
He's going to be like the next Randy Quaid.
Let's hope he's more like the next Dennis Quaid.
Well, the whole
Not
Quaid
following
clan,
Uncle Randy's footsteps.
None of them aren't weird. You know, I actually said there was I guess Randy Quaid is doing conventions again, because there was a picture of that Alex Winter, who plays Bill S. Preston Esquire, the Bill and Ted movies, posted a couple weeks ago. He was doing a signing at a convention, and so is Randy Quaid. And I don't know if you know this, Moose, but right after the first 2 Bill and Ted movies, Alex Winter co-directed a movie called Freaked, which is this insane like gonzo comedy about Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid runs a freak show in South America, and he's kidnapping people and smothering them with this toxic chemical to turn them into mutants for the freak show.
God.
And it's a great movie, like a total showcase. It's like, it was originally supposed to be the Butthole Surfers movie. I don't know if you know the Butthole Surfers, but like,
Yes, and I do. Oh my God, I have seen this movie.
So yeah, dig that one out from your brains and find it somewhere to watch. It's awesome. It's great. But
absolutely, my trivia partner Benny is the #1 fan of the worst movies of all time. And this is, I guarantee you, if I told him about Freak, he would be like, "Oh my God, I know everyone who was in this movie."
Totally.
Oh my gosh, I remember this movie though.
And
It's been
fun,
so long, but yeah.
fun full circle. Kevin Kiner did the score for Freaked.
Oh, fun.
Oh, nice.
And I have his signature on my soundtrack LP.
Nice. Well done. Well,
yeah.
Nice full circle. I like that.
I was surprised I got there. But yeah, so Randy Quaid out and about. Good. I don't know.
Let's get him in. Let's get him in the Star
good?
Wars universe.
I would love Randy Quaid being in Star Wars is not weirder than Clint Howard being in Star Wars, and that happened.
Dude,
So-
Randy
happened.
Quaid could just be this like corrupt governor on one of these planets, you know, that Mando has to go
Man,
toe
he
to
could be
toe with. So
he could be
sign me
corrupt
up.
governor. He could be crazy barkeep. He could be like the weird guy who knows how to fix the one thing that is broken, that is the key to getting to where they're going. Like he could be that guy really well.
He's the one human who could work on Beskar armor, and
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, I
like
love
he's
where
got,
we're
like,
going
some
with this.
hyper specialty. I want that for Randy Quaid and Star Wars.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. All right. I'm convinced. Sign me up. Disney, you can get him for cheap if you're listening.
Absolutely. Pennies on the dollar. You guys are hiring a lot of washed up people and revitalizing their careers with Star Wars and probably underpaying them. Do it to Randy Quaid.
Do it.
Are you
I
sure
just-
to file it?
Yeah, I just dropped a picture in our chat, the private chat of look at this baby face Randy Quaid and the Hal Ashby's The Last Detail. Look at that
Oh
little
my
guy.
gosh.
Aw, Lil Randy.
I love it. Little Randy. Oh,
Wow.
that'll be the name of his Disney Plus series. Little Randy.
Oh man. I don't even the idea of like Randy Quaid having a children's show, I don't think I support that. I don't think I'm behind that.
I mean, Travis, you've got a couple of kids. Would you show Little Randy to your children?
I don't know. I'd have to like vet it a little bit first.
I think the first sound you made was all the answer we needed.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. I will say this though: after the first 2 episodes of Ahsoka, I'm all in.
Yeah, totally.
I love it. Yeah. While there were some things that, yeah, okay, maybe didn't work here, maybe didn't work there, pacing issues, you know, still on the fence with you guys about Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Like, kind of my final thoughts on Ahsoka is it's great. I mean, the scene, and I know I've said it so many times, but the scene on Corellia is check that box for me when it comes to like that Star Wars like want. it was just such like a Star Wars moment. You're getting the lightsaber battle, but you're also getting the space battle kind of all happening in sequence at the same time, and it all worked for me. So yeah, I'm in. Keep taking my money, Disney Plus.
Same, and I'm always for extreme choices, and when it comes to stuff like big properties, and this show feels like a very extreme choice, and I am very happy for it.
Yeah, no, me as well. And with that, we'll start wrapping things up. On top of OBS is being weird, and for some reason, you guys are blacked out in the stream, and I don't know why. Yes, very good. Okay, so
it's a good thing I waited till now to take off my pants.
Good. Nobody would have noticed
pants
anyway.
This whole time?
All right, so we'll just start exiting things, and so. All right. Until next time, Mark, where can people find you online, and what are you doing?
I am the co-host of a trivia show on YouTube called Benny and Moose Save America. It's my good friend Benny Hamlin is also in Ohio. We put on a movie trivia show every week, and we have different guests that come on and play. Travis has played a few times. Played in a Bond match. He's played in a Indiana Jones match. So we do try to invite anybody, or everybody, and anybody who's interested in playing in trivia. We will write you a match. We've got a all 80s trivia match coming up soon, where it's 80s music, it's 80s TV shows, it's 80s movies. If you're a fan of the 80s and you want to play, reach out to myself or Benny. You can find both of us on Twitter. We're at the Last American Heroes Network on YouTube. We also have a sister show on there that's going to be debuting this month with our good friend David the Survivor and Jin Doyen. But it's a little different take on movie trivia. It's called Cinemojis. And basically he shows you a certain amount of emojis and you have to guess the movie. So it's a kind of a fun concept. We just wrapped our first episode, and that should be dropping with him here in the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, it's every Thursday night, we have our trivia shows. Tomorrow night, we have the guys from Settle the Score who are coming on to yet again settle the score, this time against Bite Size Breakdown. And Amadou Moses and Paige Fabretti will be taking on the Settle the Score folks. So thank you guys so much for having me on. This was a blast. I love talking Star Wars.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. And Alex, how about you? Where can people find you?
Mostly on the couch due to double strikes in Hollywood.
What are you talking about?
But hoping for a fair resolution as soon as the writers and actors believe they have been offered such a thing, which they have not yet. Everything they have been offered is unbelievably insulting, including the most recent offer from this week. But I stand in solidarity with these people. At the same time, I need to work. So if anybody is working on a TV show or film that has a SAG interim agreement and is not covered by the WGA, hit me up to pull the focus. abrunel.com.
All right. Yeah. Let's get the ball rolling there. We need some content.
Oh man, I can't even go into it. I don't think I signed an NDA about this show. Anyway, I was working on something recently, and it's... Whew.
I am just going to add bleeps at the end of this to make it seem like there is some big news drop.
Yeah, I just dropped Skeleton Crew spoilers. Sorry, y'all.
Nice.
I didn't work on Skeleton Crew. I know people who did. I know people who worked on Ahsoka, too.
Yeah.
And I do believe that if I just keep working in Hollywood long enough, I will eventually work on Star Wars.
Yeah, you're gonna do it.
Not quite there yet, but we're shaking the hands of some Mandalorian DPs at this point, so getting there.
Nice.
Yeah. All right.
Make this happen, Disney. Make this
Do it.
happen.
Do it. Hire me.
Hire
I need
Alex.
the Disney paycheck. I need the scale. I need the scale wages.
Plus, Travis and I get our 10%.
Yeah, no, we
Promoting you, Alex. Let's go, Disney. Get this going.
Sure, man. What if I get the job? I don't even. I previously offered to sleep on the floor of a trailer to work on Clerks 3, and I wasn't taken up. So, you know.
Damn it, Kevin Smith.
Damn you, producers. That was a different iteration. Anyway.
All right.
True tales of woe. Travis, where can people find more of you?
I mean, you can find me at Travis Fishburne on certain social media sites. I won't say them anymore because they don't exist or they've been rebranded into stupid names. Yeah, you can find the show at Who Watches Pod. You can reach the show at whowatchespodcast@gmail.com. And we're on YouTube, Facebook, streaming every week. And oh man, this happens every time. I don't know how to close this. Well, I'm just going to go with the good old-fashioned one here. So until next time, initiate self-destruct sequencing.